The Silver Swan restaurant was buzzing with its usual evening glamour. Crystal chandeliers glimmered overhead, waiters moved swiftly between tables, and the sound of hushed deals mixed with clinking glasses. For Emma Collins, it was just another night. She adjusted her crisp black and white waitress uniform and tried to ignore the ache in her feet. The world of billionaires wasn't hers. She only served it from the sidelines. But fate doesn't knock politely. It barges in. Emma carried a tray of champagne flutes towards the private corner booth. Seated there was Richard Sterling, a man whose very presence bent the air. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his silver-streaked hair sharp against the glow of the golden sconces. The kind of man who owned buildings most people only dreamed of entering. Emma had seen his face in magazines, but now he was right in front of her, speaking in that deep voice that made everyone lean in. As Emma leaned down to place the drinks, something slipped from Richard's wallet. A small photograph fluttered to the floor. Reflexively, she bent to pick it up, then froze. Her heart stopped. The photo showed a little girl of about 6, with long brown hair, oval face, and deep brown eyes. The very same eyes Emma saw in her own mirror every morning. It wasn't just a resemblance. It was her. A childhood picture Emma remembered from the orphanage, the only copy she thought had ever existed. Her fingers trembled as she held it up. "Sir, where did you get this?" Richard's gaze flickered, his confident mask cracking for just a second. He snatched the photo back, his voice low but tight. "That's none of your concern." Emma's stomach churned. None of my concern? It was her face, her past, her lost childhood staring back at her. In that instant, the Silver Swan's glamour turned into a stage for something darker. An unspeakable secret binding a waitress and a billionaire in ways no one in the room could imagine. This was no coincidence. This was the beginning of a revelation that could shatter empires and rewrite Emma's life forever. Emma couldn't shake the image of the photograph. The night at the Silver Swan dragged on, but her mind was nowhere near the restaurant floor. Every smile she forced for customers, every order she wrote down, felt like a blur. Her thoughts circled back to that one impossible truth. A billionaire had her childhood photo in his wallet. When her shift finally ended, Emma slipped into the back alley, tying her apron tighter as if the knot could hold her together. The city air was damp, carrying the scent of rain and exhaust. She leaned against the brick wall, her breath uneven. Memories clawed their way back, the kind she usually kept buried. Nights in the orphanage when she clutched a threadbare teddy bear, asking the staff about her parents. Days when she sat by the window, watching other children get picked up by families while she remained behind. And always the faint recollection of someone else. A laugh, a hand she once held. A presence she could never quite name, but always felt missing. A twin. Emma whispered the word to herself. Could it be real? She remembered faint details. 2 identical bracelets given to them as babies, one lost the night they were separated. She'd always dismissed it as a story her imagination invented to ease the loneliness, but the photo proved otherwise. Someone, somewhere, had kept track of her. That thought cut deeper than any insult or hardship she'd endured. If Richard Sterling had the photo, did that mean he knew her parents? Did he know where her twin was? And if so, why had he stayed silent all these years? The alley door creaked open. Michael Harris, the head chef, and one of the few people Emma trusted, stepped out with his cigarette. He eyed her pale face. Rough night? Emma hesitated, then shook her head. Just tired. But Michael wasn't fooled. He had seen that haunted look before. He said nothing more, just offered her a lighter. Sometimes silence was the best kindness. Emma walked home through dimly lit streets, her shoes splashing in puddles. Every step echoed the same tormenting questions. By the time she reached her small apartment, her hands were trembling. She dug through an old shoebox under her bed and pulled out her only keepsake from the orphanage, a faded copy of that same photograph. Side by side, the match was undeniable. Tears blurred her vision. She pressed the photo to her chest. Somewhere, someone had stolen pieces of her life, and now a powerful man like Richard Sterling was guarding them. For the first time, Emma wasn't just a waitress. She was a woman, standing on the edge of a mystery that could either destroy her or finally give her the truth she had longed for since childhood. The hunt for answers had just begun. The next evening, Emma returned to the Silver Swan with her heart pounding harder than the clattering plates in the kitchen. She had barely slept. The photograph still burned in her mind like a wound that wouldn't heal. Tonight, she told herself, she would confront him. Richard Sterling was back, as if summoned by fate itself. He sat in his usual booth, surrounded by his entourage, lawyers, executives, men who laughed a little too loudly at his jokes. Emma carried a tray of wine glasses, each step heavy with dread. As she leaned closer to place the glasses, her voice cracked before she could stop it. "Mr. Sterling, about that photograph." For a brief second, Richard's eyes locked on hers. There it was again. Something vulnerable, almost fearful, hidden behind his steel-grey gaze. But then his expression hardened. "That was nothing," he said coldly. "A resemblance. Don't think too much of it." Emma's stomach twisted. "It wasn't just a resemblance. That was me. I had that picture. It disappeared years ago." Richard's jaw tightened. "You're mistaken." The words hit her like ice water. He didn't even flinch at her desperation. Around them, the restaurant continued its elegant ballet, oblivious to the storm brewing at one corner table. Emma's voice trembled, but she pressed on. "Why do you have it? Where did you get it?" Richard leaned back, his tone low and dismissive. "You don't know who you're talking to, girl. Some doors are best left closed." The arrogance in his words sent a chill down Emma's spine. For the first time, she realized the dangerous imbalance of power between them. He wasn't just wealthy, he was untouchable, and she was nothing more than a waitress pressing into matters beyond her reach. Her throat tightened with unshed tears. She wanted to scream, to demand the truth, but the weight of his gaze silenced her. Richard turned back to his companions as if Emma no longer existed. Humiliated, she forced herself to walk away. Her tray nearly slipped from her hands as she ducked into the kitchen, heart hammering against her ribs. Michael noticed immediately. "Emma, what happened?" She shook her head, blinking back tears. "He knows something. He just won't say it." Michael placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Then maybe he's hiding more than you think. Be careful, Emma. Men like him don't play fair." Those words echoed long after her shift ended. As Emma trudged home, the city lights blurred into streaks of gold and red. Richard's denial hadn't destroyed her suspicion. It had fueled it. If he truly had nothing to hide, why would he look so shaken when she pressed him? One thing was certain. The billionaire wasn't just connected to her past. He was guarding a truth powerful enough to terrify even him. And Emma knew she couldn't stop digging. Not now. The Silver Swan had emptied for the night, leaving only the faint smell of roasted garlic and candle wax lingering in the air. Emma stayed behind to wipe down the tables, her movements automatic, her mind elsewhere. She couldn't escape Richard's words. Sharp, cold, final. Some doors are best left closed. But deep inside, Emma knew she couldn't close this door. Not anymore. As she stacked chairs, Michael Harris emerged from the kitchen, his chef's coat draped loosely over his shoulders. He carried the weariness of a man who had seen too much, yet his eyes remained kind. He paused, watching Emma scrub a spotless table as though her life depended on it. "You're not just cleaning," he said quietly. Emma froze, rag in hand. "What do you mean?" Michael exhaled smoke from the cigarette tucked between his fingers. "I saw you with Sterling. The way your face fell. He said something, didn't he?" Emma's chest tightened. Part of her wanted to confide, but fear tangled her words. Still, the secret had grown too heavy to carry alone. "He had a picture," she whispered. "A photo of me as a child. He pretended it was nothing. But I knew it was me." Michael's jaw clenched, his eyes narrowing with something more than curiosity. Concern. "Emma, listen to me. If Sterling's involved, you need to be careful. Men like him, they don't keep secrets without reason, and when they're exposed, they strike back." Her heart thudded painfully. "So you think he's hiding something?" Michael leaned against the counter, lowering his voice. "I've worked here long enough to see powerful men up close. They think the world bends for them. If Sterling carries your photo, it's not by chance, but pressing him could cost you more than your job." Emma bit her lip, fighting the sting of tears. But what if that photo is the key? What if it's connected to my past? Michael studied her for a long moment, then extinguished his cigarette. Then you need allies, people you can trust. But don't trust the wrong ones, Emma. Not everyone who smiles at you means well. The words carried a weight she didn't fully grasp yet, but they settled deep in her chest. As she left the restaurant that night, the streets felt colder, shadows stretching longer than usual. She replayed Michael's warning in her mind. Allies, enemies, secrets. Which path would lead to answers, and which would lead to ruin? For the first time, Emma realized she wasn't just chasing her past. She was stepping into a battlefield she didn't yet understand. And somewhere in the darkness, someone was waiting for her first wrong move. The Silver Swan glimmered with candlelight the following evening, its polished marble floors reflecting the silhouettes of the wealthy. Emma moved through the dining hall with practiced grace, though her heart remained unsettled. Michael's warning still echoed in her mind. Not everyone who smiles at you means well. That was when Clara Monroe entered. Clara was the kind of woman who commanded attention the moment she appeared. Draped in a diamond-studded gown, her blonde hair curled in perfect waves, she carried herself like royalty. Conversations hushed as she glided to Richard Sterling's table, kissing his cheek with effortless entitlement. Emma felt invisible in comparison, just a waitress with tired shoes and trembling hands. Yet Clara's eyes found her, sharp as glass, locking on her for a second too long. It wasn't admiration. It was an assessment. Later, as Emma cleared plates near the bar, Clara approached with a smile too polished to be genuine. "You must be Emma," she said sweetly, her voice dripping honey. Emma stiffened. "Yes, ma'am. Can I help you?" "Oh, darling, don't be so formal." Clara leaned in, lowering her voice. "I've heard Richard mention you." Emma blinked, shocked. "Mention me?" Clara's laugh tinkled like broken glass. "Nothing scandalous, of course. He simply noticed how diligent you are, and I think that's admirable." The words felt wrong, like bait dangling on a hook. Clara's smile never reached her eyes. "You see," Clara continued, brushing an invisible speck off her diamond bracelet, "the Sterling Circle can be overwhelming. If you ever feel lost, I'd be happy to guide you. After all, women like us need to look out for each other, don't we?" Emma's pulse raced. Every instinct screamed not to trust her, yet Clara's charm was suffocating. She nodded politely, hiding her unease. "Thank you, that's kind." Clara's hand lingered on Emma's arm a moment too long. "Careful, dear. In this world, curiosity is dangerous. Ask too many questions, and you may not like the answers." The warning, disguised as kindness, left Emma cold. Clara drifted back toward Richard's table, her laughter like music masking a blade. Emma exhaled shakily. Michael had been right. Clara's sweetness was a trap, and Emma had just stepped into its shadow. That night, as Emma walked home under the neon glow of the city, her thoughts spun. Clara wasn't simply Richard's companion. She was a gatekeeper, guarding whatever secret the billionaire refused to share. But why had Clara approached her directly? To intimidate her, or to measure how much she already knew? Either way, Emma realized one chilling truth. She wasn't just dealing with Richard anymore. She had caught Clara's attention, and that could be far more dangerous. The storm finally broke the next evening. Rain hammered against the windows of the Silver Swan, turning the city lights into blurred streaks of gold. Inside, the restaurant glowed with warmth, but Emma felt the chill of suspicion crawling under her skin. Clara's honeyed warning lingered in her ears like poison, and Richard's cold denial haunted every step she took. She was polishing glasses behind the bar when a voice, rough yet measured, spoke from behind her. "Miss Collins?" Emma turned to find an older gentleman standing there. His silver hair was neatly combed, his tailored suit more discreet than extravagant, and his eyes carried a weight of secrets. She had seen him before, always at Richard's side during private dinners, Henry Whitmore, the Sterling family's longtime lawyer. Emma stiffened. "Yes?" Henry glanced around, ensuring no one was listening. Then he slipped a small envelope across the counter. "Don't open it here. Read it when you're alone." And Emma, be very careful. Her pulse quickened. Why are you giving this to me? Henry's expression softened with something close to pity. Because I've watched Richard bury the truth for too long. You deserve to know at least a piece of it. But know this. The truth is dangerous. Before she could respond, he turned and vanished into the dining room, swallowed by the crowd of polished shoes and glittering gowns. Emma's hands shook as she tucked the envelope into her apron. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. Every time she saw Clara's piercing gaze or Richard's controlled composure, the envelope seemed to burn hotter against her side. When midnight finally came, Emma hurried home through the rain, her shoes soaking, her heart racing. She locked the door to her tiny apartment, sat on the edge of her bed, and tore open the envelope. Inside was a faded letter, yellowed with age. The handwriting was elegant but trembling. To the one who survives, you were not meant to be alone. There were two. On the night of the fire, one child vanished, taken before my eyes. I begged the Sterlings for help, but they silenced me. If you find this, know the truth lies buried in their home. Emma's throat tightened. Two. The word pulsed like thunder in her head. A twin. The letter confirmed what she had always felt but never proved, and worse, it implicated the Sterlings in the disappearance. Tears stung her eyes as she pressed the paper to her chest. Richard's coldness, Clara's false sweetness, Henry's warning, it all connected now. The billionaire wasn't just hiding a photograph. He was guarding a stolen past. Emma whispered into the silence of her room, her voice breaking. I'm not crazy. I was never crazy. There really was another. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, Emma's resolve hardened. The time for waiting was over. The hunt for her stolen twin had begun. The Silver Swan pulsed with its usual elegance the next evening, but for Emma, nothing felt normal anymore. The letter still sat hidden in her dresser drawer, its words etched into her memory like fire. There were two. The truth was no longer a whisper. It was undeniable. But that truth also painted a target on her back. As Emma carried a tray of crystal glasses across the dining room, she felt the weight of eyes on her. Not the judging stares of wealthy patrons, nor Clara's sharpened gaze. It was Richard Sterling himself. He sat at his corner booth, untouched whiskey glass before him, his powerful shoulders hunched in thought. When Emma approached to set the drinks, Richard's usual indifference faltered. His eyes lingered on her face, longer than appropriate, longer than he'd ever allowed before. You look tired, he said suddenly, his deep voice cutting through the air. Emma nearly dropped the glass. Richard Sterling never spoke to her beyond curt commands. She forced composure. It's been a long week, sir. Something softened in his expression. Life hasn't been kind to you, has it? The word stunned her. She wasn't sure if it was pity, guilt, or something more hidden. She wanted to scream. You know exactly why. But she bit her tongue. Instead, she nodded politely. I manage. Richard leaned back, studying her as though she were a puzzle only he could solve. There's strength in you. Not many survive this city without breaking. Before Emma could respond, Clara slid into the booth beside him, her diamond earrings flashing under the chandelier. She draped a possessive hand across his arm and smiled sweetly. Darling, don't you think it's improper to burden the staff with personal observations? Richard's jaw tightened, but he didn't look away from Emma. Sometimes the staff know more than anyone gives them credit for. Emma's breath caught. The message was layered, half warning, half recognition. Clara's smile froze, and her nails dug slightly into Richard's sleeve. Emma excused herself quickly, her hands trembling as she returned to the kitchen. Michael was plating desserts, but his eyes flicked up when he saw her pale face. What happened? He asked. Emma swallowed hard. He spoke to me. Not like before. Almost kind. But it didn't feel safe. Michael frowned. Kindness from a man like Sterling. That's no kindness at all. It's strategy. His words rang true. Emma knew Richard wasn't reaching out of compassion. He was probing, testing how much she knew. And maybe, just maybe, he felt the walls of his secrets closing in. That night, as Emma walked home, The city felt different. The billionaire who once dismissed her now looked at her as though she held the missing piece to his world. But if Richard Sterling was finally noticing her, it meant danger wasn't coming. It was already Emma dreaded the moment their paths would cross again, but inevitability came sooner than expected. The Silver Swan glimmered with Friday night grandeur, jazz from the grand piano, glasses clinking, and the perfume of wealth floating in the air. Emma balanced a tray of champagne when she felt a soft voice brush against her. "Emma, isn't it?" She turned. Clara Munro stood there, radiant in sapphire silk, her smile dazzling enough to blind. To everyone else, Clara was the epitome of elegance. To Emma, that smile looked like a knife disguised as a rose. "Yes, ma'am," Emma answered cautiously. "Oh, don't call me that," Clara chuckled. "We're practically friends now, aren't we?" Emma stiffened. "Friends?" Clara linked her arm through Emma's as though they were confidants, steering her towards the quieter end of the dining hall. "Richard has mentioned you more than once. He admires hard-working people. I admire that, too." Emma forced a polite nod, though her pulse quickened. Clara's perfume was sweet, but her words carried venom. "You're different from the rest of the staff," Clara went on, lowering her voice. "You have presence, and Richard notices." Emma's throat tightened. She wanted to deny it, to insist she was invisible. But Clara's gaze was unrelenting. "Let me give you some advice," Clara whispered, tilting her head as though sharing a secret. "Men like Richard. They're drawn to loyalty. If you stay close to him, you might find your life changing in ways you can't even imagine. Power, protection, privilege." Emma's stomach turned. This wasn't advice. It was bait. Clara wanted to know if Emma would bite. "I'm just here to work," Emma said firmly. Clara laughed softly, brushing a manicured hand against Emma's cheek in mock affection. "So noble. But nobility doesn't survive long in this world." Her smile sharpened. "Remember, darling, curiosity can be fatal." The words lingered in the air like smoke. Clara drifted back to Richard's side, her gown trailing behind her like a warning banner. Emma stood frozen, her tray trembling in her hands. On the surface, Clara had offered friendship, but beneath it, Emma heard the threat loud and clear. "Stay away. Don't ask questions. Know your place." Later that night, Michael found Emma in the kitchen, staring at her reflection in the steel counter. "What did she want?" he asked. Emma swallowed hard. "She offered me protection, but it felt like poison dressed in silk." Michael's brow darkened. "Then she sees you as a threat, and that means you're closer to the truth than they want you to be." Emma's chest ached with fear, but also with resolve. Clara's false sweetness confirmed it. Whatever secret Richard carried was worth guarding with claws. And Emma, whether ready or not, had stepped into the center of the storm. The invitation came in a way that left Emma no chance to refuse. Clara herself approached her at the end of another exhausting shift at the Silver Swan, her smile sharp and glittering like glass under candlelight. "Richard is hosting a private gathering at the mansion tomorrow," she said casually, as though inviting a friend to brunch. "He insisted you help with the service. I'll send a car." It wasn't a request. It was a command dressed in velvet. Emma's stomach knotted, but she nodded. Of course. The next evening, a black limousine waited at the curb outside her apartment. The ride through the city felt surreal, skyscrapers fading into sprawling estates until the Sterling mansion loomed ahead, its iron gates opening like jaws to swallow her whole. Inside, the mansion glowed with opulence, golden chandeliers, polished marble floors, walls lined with oil portraits of generations of Sterlings staring down with cold, watchful eyes. Emma moved quietly among servers, carrying trays of wine and hors d'oeuvres, but her mind buzzed with tension. Everywhere she turned, she felt Clara's gaze shadowing her, sharp and predatory. Richard, by contrast, barely spoke, though his eyes flickered toward Emma more than once, heavy with something unspoken. During a lull, Emma slipped down a side hallway, curiosity tugging her forward. The air here was different, quieter, heavier. She passed closed doors until one caught her attention. Its brass handle was polished but cold, and a faint draught seeped from beneath the door. Something about it felt forbidden. Her pulse raced. She glanced around, no one in sight, then gently turned the handle. Locked. But fate wasn't finished with her. Just as she leaned closer, a muffled clink echoed from inside. She crouched, peering through the narrow gap where the door frame had warped with age. Her breath caught. Inside, illuminated by a shaft of moonlight, was a small wooden box atop a velvet-draped table. And lying beside it, unmistakable even in the dim glow, was a delicate silver bracelet, the same design Emma remembered from childhood, a missing twins bracelet. Her heart slammed against her ribs. It wasn't imagination. It wasn't a dream. Proof of her twin was here, hidden in Richard Sterling's mansion. Suddenly, a voice cut through the silence. "What are you doing?" Emma jerked back to find Clara standing at the end of the hallway, her smile stretched thin. The sweetness from earlier was gone, replaced by something colder, deadlier. I got lost," Emma stammered. Clara's heels clicked against the marble as she approached, her eyes narrowing. "Be careful where you wander. Some rooms are locked for a reason." Emma forced a trembling nod, retreating quickly. But as she returned to the glittering party, her mind burned with one truth. She was closer than ever. The secret was real, and Richard's mansion was hiding it, and Clara knew she was getting too close. The Sterling mansion's ballroom glittered with chandeliers and laughter. Guests in gowns and tuxedos sipped champagne, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface. Emma weaved through the crowd, balancing a tray of flutes, her mind still locked on the silver bracelet she'd glimpsed in the forbidden room. Every beat of her heart whispered the same truth. Her twin was real, and the Sterlings had hidden it. But she wasn't the only one carrying secrets tonight. Clara Monroe had been watching. Emma set her tray down near the bar, trying to catch her breath, when Clara's crystal-clear voice rang out across the ballroom. "Ladies and gentlemen," she called sweetly, raising her glass, "a toast." The room quieted, attention snapping to her. Clara smiled like a queen addressing her court, though her eyes flicked toward Emma with venom masked as charm. "Tonight we celebrate Richard Sterling, his success, his generosity, his legacy. But what is a man without loyalty around him?" Clara paused, letting the silence sharpen. "And what is more dangerous than a servant who doesn't know her place?" A ripple of uneasy laughter coursed through the crowd. Emma's chest tightened as all eyes shifted toward her. Clara continued, her smile unbreaking. "Take our dear waitress, Emma. She's curious, very curious. Wandering the halls, peering at locked doors. Perhaps she thinks she belongs among us?" Emma's hands shook. Heat flushed her cheeks as whispers spread through the room. Locked doors. Clara was exposing her, twisting the truth into humiliation. Richard's eyes darkened, his jaw stiff. He didn't speak, but the weight of his silence pressed down harder than any accusation. "I mean no harm, of course," Clara added smoothly, tilting her head in mock sympathy. "It's just so easy for some people to forget their station." The crowd chuckled politely, eager to mirror Clara's cruelty. Emma's throat closed. She wanted to shout, to defend herself, to tell them about the bracelet, but she couldn't. Not here, not with Richard watching like a judge on high. Her tray clattered as she set it down too hard, her voice trembling. I was only doing my job." Clara's smile widened, triumphant. "Of course you were, darling." The party resumed, laughter and music swelling again, but the damage was done. Emma stood in the corner, her dignity shredded, tears threatening to spill. Richard finally rose from his seat, crossing the floor with measured steps. He stopped near Emma, his voice low enough for only her to hear. "I warned you not to ask questions." The words sliced through her, heavier than Clara's mockery. He wasn't protecting her, he was protecting himself. Emma forced back her tears, straightening her spine. If Clara wanted to humiliate her, and Richard wanted to silence her, then so be it. But Emma had seen the truth with her own eyes, and no amount of cruelty would stop her from uncovering what really happened to her twin. The game had changed, and Emma wasn't playing servant anymore. The mansion's ballroom faded into echoes, laughter, music, the clink of glasses, all muffled by the pounding in Emma's chest. Her face burned as she slipped out a side door, her tray abandoned, dignity in tatters. Clara's cruel smile replayed in her mind like a blade, and Richard's cold whisper, I warned you not to ask questions. Cut deeper than any insult. Outside, the rain had returned, soft but relentless, soaking the stone terrace. Emma stumbled into the shadows, pressing her back against the wall, her hands trembling. The night air smelled of roses and wet earth, but all she could taste was humiliation. Her breath hitched, uneven, and before she could stop herself, the tears came. Silent at first, then racking sobs that bent her shoulders forward. She sank onto the cold steps, burying her face in her hands. For years, Emma had built herself on strength, surviving the orphanage, carving out a life on her own, never depending on anyone. But tonight, every wall cracked. She had been ridiculed, diminished, treated as less than human in front of people who saw her as nothing more than entertainment. And worse, she had proof that her twin existed. Proof she couldn't speak without being silenced. The pain was unbearable because it wasn't just humiliation. It was grief. Grief for the sister she never knew, for the family that abandoned her, for the truth buried under lies and locked doors. "Why me?" she whispered through tears, her voice raw. "Why was I the one left behind?" The question spiraled in her chest, heavy with years of longing. Somewhere in this world was her other half, stolen from her, and the man who might hold the answers, the billionaire everyone admired, had chosen to bury her truth rather than set her free. The terrace door creaked. Emma wiped her face furiously, trying to hide her breakdown, but it was too late. Michael Harris stood there, his coat damp from the kitchen steam, his expression filled with quiet sorrow. He didn't speak right away. He simply walked over and sat beside her on the wet stone steps, offering his silence like a shield. Finally, Emma choked out. "She humiliated me. He stood there and let her. And all I wanted was the truth." Michael placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "You're not weak for crying, Emma. You're human. And you're not wrong. There's something here they don't want you to find. That means you're closer than ever." Emma lifted her tear-streaked face toward him. His words didn't erase the pain, but they lit a fragile spark of resolve in her chest. She clenched her fists. "Then I won't stop, no matter what they do to me. I have to know." The rain drummed louder, as if the night itself bore witness. Emma's tears slowed, but her determination solidified. This was her breaking point, and also her rebirth. If Clara and Richard thought humiliation would silence her, they had underestimated the fire of a woman who had nothing left to lose. The following evening, Emma returned to the Silver Swan with swollen eyes, but steady hands. She had cried her heart dry the night before. Tonight there would be no tears, only resolve. Still, every step she took across the polished floor carried the weight of Clara's laughter and Richard's silence. She didn't expect to see him again so soon, but fate rarely asked permission. Richard Sterling arrived later than usual, alone this time. No Clara draped on his arm, no entourage. He sat at his private booth, his broad frame hunched as if the empire on his shoulders had grown heavier overnight. When Emma approached with a tray of wine, Richard looked up. For once, his steel-grey eyes lacked their usual armor. He gestured for her to sit. Emma froze. "Sir, I'm on duty. This isn't about duty," Richard interrupted, his voice low, almost weary. "It's about the truth." Her heart skipped. She slid into the seat across from him. Tension coiled in her chest. Richard studied her face, his expression unreadable. "The photograph. It is you. I won't deny it anymore." Emma's breath caught. The words she had waited her whole life to hear were finally spoken, but his tone was not confession. It was controlled. "There was another child," Richard continued, voice measured. "Your twin. She disappeared in a fire years ago. Everyone believed she died. I carried that picture as a reminder of what was lost, that's all." Emma's pulse raced. "That's not true. I've seen the bracelet. She didn't die. Someone took her." Richard's jaw tightened. "You don't understand the power at play. That night, mistakes were made. Dangerous people were involved. I did what I had to do to protect my family's name." His words felt like a blade twisting in her chest. "Protect your name? What about protecting us? Protecting me?" For the first time, Richard looked away, his gaze heavy with something close to shame. "You survived. That should be enough. Emma's throat burned. Enough? You stole my sister from me. Richard leaned forward, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Listen carefully. The truth will not save you. It will destroy you. Do you think Clara humiliates you for sport? No. She's keeping you in line because she knows what will happen if you dig too deep. These secrets aren't just family scandals. They're blood debts. And if you're smart, you'll stop now. Emma's eyes blurred with tears she refused to shed. His words weren't just warning. They were manipulation, twisting reality into a weapon. He wanted her to accept half-truths, to surrender under fear. But Emma's fists clenched under the table. He had confirmed it. Her twin existed, and the Sterlings were tangled in the disappearance. She stood, her voice trembling but firm. You can twist the truth all you want, Richard, but I will find her, and when I do, no empire will protect you from what's coming. Richard's eyes darkened. For the first time, the billionaire looked afraid. The Silver Swan was quieter than usual, its usual hum of luxury dulled by the storm outside. Emma wiped down the bar, her mind replaying Richard's twisted confession over and over. He had confirmed her twin existed, yet he cloaked the truth in shadows and threats. She couldn't let it end there. The door creaked, and in walked Henry Whitmore. His presence always seemed to bend the room, though he carried no arrogance. Instead, he moved like a man burdened with too many secrets. His suit was damp from the rain, his silver hair disheveled. Miss Collins, he greeted softly, sliding onto a stool. We need to talk. Emma stiffened. About what? Henry placed a weathered leather briefcase on the counter and clicked it open. Inside were neatly stacked documents, their edges yellowed with age. He pulled one free, unfolding it carefully. This, he said, tapping the page, is a record of guardianship transfers from 24 years ago. It shows that 2 children were placed under temporary custody of the Sterling family after the fire, but only one was returned to the system. The other vanished. Emma's breath caught. My twin. Henry nodded grimly. Yes. And there's more. He pulled another file, this one stamped confidential. Financial records. Payments made quietly to an unregistered foundation. The signature? He pointed at the bottom. Clara Munro. Emma's hands shook as she skimmed the paper. Clara? She wasn't even part of the family then. No, Henry said darkly. But she had ambitions. She attached herself to the Sterlings early, desperate for influence. These records suggest she helped orchestrate the disappearance, ensuring the second child was never traced. She buried the past so she could rise with Richard. Emma's knees weakened. Clara hadn't just humiliated her out of jealousy. She had been involved from the beginning. Why are you showing me this? Emma asked, her voice breaking. Henry's gaze softened. Because I've lived with this guilt too long. I tried to speak once, and they silenced me. But you are proof that truth cannot stay buried. You must be prepared, Emma. Clara is ruthless. She won't let you expose her without a fight. Emma swallowed hard, gripping the papers. They felt like dynamite in her hands. Then I'll fight. I don't care how powerful she is. She stole my sister. Henry reached across the counter, his weathered hand steady on hers. Then don't fight alone. There are people who would stand with you. People who owe the Sterlings nothing. When the time comes, I'll testify. For the first time, Emma saw not just fear in Henry's eyes, but defiance. The storm outside thundered louder, rattling the windows. Emma tucked the documents into her apron, her heart pounding. Clara wasn't just a socialite with sharp words. She was a conspirator in the theft of Emma's life. And now Emma had proof. The next evening, the Silver Swan was alive with chatter. But Emma's world narrowed to one figure, seated alone in the corner booth, Richard Sterling. His whiskey sat untouched, his shoulders hunched under an invisible weight. Emma's pulse quickened. She carried Henry's documents hidden in her bag, the truth beating like a drum against her side. Clara had orchestrated her sister's disappearance. But Richard had let it happen. Tonight, she needed answers from him, not Clara. She approached cautiously, her voice steady, despite the storm inside. We need to talk. Richard glanced up, his eyes tired, almost hollow. For once the arrogance was gone. He gestured for her to sit. Emma slid into the booth, clutching her bag like a lifeline. "I know about Clara," she whispered. "Henry gave me the documents, the payments, the guardianship records. You knew my twin was alive. You let her disappear." Richard closed his eyes, exhaling a long, ragged breath. "You don't understand what it was like back then. The fire, the chaos, everything was collapsing. My empire was young, fragile. If word had spread that a child under my protection had gone missing, the scandal would have destroyed me." Emma's voice cracked. "So you sacrificed her, my sister, for your reputation?" Richard's jaw tightened, his hand gripping the glass so hard it trembled. "I told myself it was temporary, that I'd find her quietly. But the deeper I searched, the darker it became. Clara. She made sure the trail disappeared, and by then, speaking up would have meant admitting I had failed. Billionaires don't fail, Emma. Not publicly." Emma's chest ached. "You had the power to save us, and you chose silence." His gaze met hers then, haunted and raw. "I chose survival. For the empire, for everything I built, and yes, because I was a coward." The words shattered her. She had hoped for excuses, even lies, but hearing him confess cowardice cut deeper. "Do you know what it's like?" Emma whispered, tears rising. "To grow up thinking you were unwanted. To believe you were alone, when all along someone knew but stayed silent." Richard's face twisted with pain. He reached out across the table, his hand trembling. "I failed you. I failed both of you. And every day I carry that weight." Emma pulled back, her tears falling freely now. "Then carry it alone, because I won't let your silence bury her any more. I will find my sister, with or without you." For the first time, the mighty Richard Sterling looked broken. His empire still stood tall, but his soul was crumbling. Emma rose, leaving him with his untouched whiskey and his hollow empire. The truth had been spoken, and the cowardice of a billionaire could no longer silence her. The Sterling estate shimmered under moonlight, its grand fountain spilling silver streams into the night. Emma had been summoned again, this time for another private event. She wanted to refuse, but after Richard's confession, staying close felt like the only way to uncover more. Inside, the ballroom buzzed with glittering guests. Clara was the perfect hostess, her sapphire gown sparkling as she moved through the crowd. To the world, she was grace embodied. But to Emma, she was a predator wearing diamonds. As the evening dragged on, Clara's gaze never left her. Every smile felt sharpened, every glance a calculation. Emma stayed busy with trays, avoiding confrontation, until Clara's voice suddenly rang like honey behind her. "Emma, darling, would you help me with something?" Emma turned to find Clara alone, her eyes gleaming with false warmth. She forced a nod. "Of course." Clara led her through a side hallway, heels clicking like a countdown. They reached a terrace overlooking the mansion's vast garden. The air smelled of roses and wet stone, the night quiet but tense. "I wanted to apologize," Clara began sweetly, resting her hands on the marble railing, "for embarrassing you at the party. Perhaps I was too harsh." Emma frowned. "You humiliated me on purpose." Clara laughed lightly. "Oh, Emma, you're stronger than you look. Consider it a test." She stepped closer, her perfume heavy, her voice dropping low. "But you've grown far too curious. And curiosity, my dear, can be fatal." Before Emma could react, Clara's hands shot forward, shoving her hard against the railing. Emma gasped, her body teetering over the dark garden below. The ground spun far beneath her, the drop deadly. "Clara, stop!" Emma cried, gripping the cold marble with desperate hands. Clara's face twisted, the mask gone. "You should have stayed in your place. Richard may be weak, but I am not." She pushed harder, Emma's nails scraping stone. Just as her strength gave out, a shout split the night. "Emma!" Michael burst through the terrace door, sprinting forward. Clara stumbled back, startled, as Michael grabbed Emma and pulled her to safety. Emma collapsed against him, gasping for breath, her body trembling. Clara's mask snapped back on in an instant. She smoothed her gown, her smile returning like nothing had happened. "She slipped," she said coolly. "Clumsy girl." Michael's glare burned through her lie. "If you touch her again, Clara, I swear you'll regret it." Clara only smirked, her eyes cold. "You can't protect her forever." Then she turned and disappeared into the shadows of the hall. Emma clutched Michael's arm, her tears mixing with the night air. She had nearly died. Clara wasn't just trying to frighten her anymore. She was trying to erase her. And Emma knew one thing with chilling certainty. The next attempt might succeed, unless she uncovered the truth fast enough to end Clara's power. The Silver Swan was unusually quiet that night, as though the city itself held its breath. Emma moved mechanically through her shift, her body still aching from Clara's attempted murder on the terrace. The memory of the railing biting into her hands, of Michael's desperate grip saving her life, refused to fade. Clara wasn't simply cruel. She was deadly. When the restaurant finally emptied, Emma was wiping down the last table when she noticed Richard Sterling standing at the entrance, alone. His tailored suit looked immaculate, but his eyes, those cold, commanding eyes, were dim, almost haunted. "Emma," he said softly, breaking the silence. "We need to talk." Her first instinct was to turn away, to ignore him forever. But the truth still burned in her chest, demanding answers. She set the rag down and faced him. "Talk, then." Richard walked closer, each step heavy. He stopped at the table, lowering himself into a chair like a man carrying centuries of regret. "I should have told you long ago. The photo, the bracelet, the guardianship papers. They all lead to one truth. A truth I buried for my own pride." Emma's heart pounded. "Say it." His voice cracked in a way she had never heard before. "You're not just a girl I failed to protect. You're my daughter." The words hit like thunder. Emma's breath caught, her knees weak. "Your daughter." Richard's gaze fell to the table, shame flooding his face. "Your mother was the only woman I ever truly loved. But our world, our names, kept us apart. When the fire happened, I thought I had lost you both. But then you were found alive, placed into the system. I should have claimed you. I should have raised you. But I was afraid of scandal, of losing everything I built. So I stayed silent." Emma's eyes filled with tears, her voice trembling with fury. "You abandoned me. You let me grow up alone, without love, without family. When all this time you were my father." Richard's hands shook as he reached across the table, but Emma pulled back. His voice broke. "I told myself I was protecting you. But the truth is, I was protecting myself. And Clara, she's known for years. She used that knowledge to tighten her hold over me. Every choice I made, every silence I kept, she turned it into her power." Emma's tears spilled freely, her chest tight with pain. "You let her steal everything from me. My sister, my childhood, my truth." Richard's own eyes glistened, and for that I can never ask forgiveness. "But Emma, know this. Your sister is alive. Clara hid her, not me. If you keep searching, you'll find her." Emma's heart thundered with grief and rage. The man who had destroyed her life was also the man who had given it, her father. She rose, her voice steady despite the storm inside. "You chose silence, Richard. But I choose the truth, and I will not stop until Clara pays." Richard bowed his head, broken. For the first time, the titan of industry looked like a man stripped bare. Not powerful, not untouchable, but guilty and afraid. The rain had eased, but the streets around the Silver Swan still glistened, reflecting neon like fractured glass. Emma sat in the corner booth after her shift, the weight of Richard's confession pressing heavy on her chest. His daughter. The words echoed relentlessly. She wasn't just the orphan waitress anymore. She was blood. But blood tainted by betrayal. The bell above the restaurant door chimed. Henry Whitmore stepped in, his grey coat damp, his briefcase clutched tight. His eyes swept the room until they landed on Emma. He approached with urgency, lowering himself across from her. "Emma," he said quietly, "it's time you saw everything." Her stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" Henry opened his briefcase, pulling out a thick file wrapped in twine. He set it on the table between them. "I've been gathering this for years, too afraid to release it. But after what Clara tried to do to you, I can't stay silent any longer." Emma untied the twine with trembling fingers. Inside were ledgers, letters, and photographs. She froze at one image. Clara, younger but unmistakable, shaking hands with a man Emma didn't recognize. His cold smile sent chills down her spine. "Who is he?" she whispered. Henry's voice was grave. "Victor Dane. He ran one of the most discreet child trafficking rings on the East Coast during the late 90s. Clara's payments to his foundation are all here. She financed him, and in exchange, he took the second twin off the record." Emma's blood ran cold. "She sold my sister." Henry nodded, sorrow in his eyes. "Clara covered every trail. Richard suspected but never dared confirm. And I stayed quiet, fearing for my career, my life. But now the truth can't wait any longer. If this file reaches the right hands, Clara's empire of lies will collapse." Emma's chest tightened with rage and grief. All the humiliation, the manipulation, the near-death push from the terrace, it was all part of Clara's attempt to bury her past. Tears blurred Emma's vision as she clutched the file. "My sister. Where is she now?" Henry shook his head. "That I don't know. Victor vanished years ago, and Clara ensured silence. But with these documents, the authorities will have no choice but to dig deeper. This is the key to unraveling it all." Emma's hands trembled as she pressed the folder to her chest. For the first time, she held proof not just of Clara's cruelty, but of her crimes. Henry leaned forward, his voice low and urgent. "But you must be careful. Clara has powerful allies. If she realizes you have this, she won't hesitate to try again. And next time, she won't miss." Emma's heart pounded. The truth was finally in her hands, but so was a death sentence. She straightened, fire burning in her eyes. "Then let her come, because I'm done being her victim." Henry gave a solemn nod. The storm had shifted. Clara Monroe wasn't just a rival anymore. She was a criminal, and Emma now held the smoking gun. Clara Monroe had built her reputation like a palace. Lavish charity galas, front-page magazine covers, her arm always hooked around Richard Sterling's as if she owned him. To the world, she was an elegant incarnate. But beneath the glitter, Emma now held the rot that could bring it all down. The folder of documents lay heavy in her bag, its weight equal parts salvation and danger. Every page screamed of Clara's crimes. Payments, photographs, names long buried, proof the kind that could topple giants. In the quiet back office of the Silver Swan, Emma sat across from Henry, the lamplight painting his face in shadows. Michael lingered near the door, arms crossed, ready to shield Emma from any storm that might burst in. "We can't keep this here," Henry said, tapping the folder. "It's too risky. Clara will sense the shift. She's survived by sniffing out threats before they grow teeth." Emma clenched her fists. "So what do we do? Run to the police? The press?" Henry shook his head. "Not yet. If we move too soon, she'll use her influence to bury it. We need timing, strategy, and allies who won't fold under pressure." Michael's voice cut through the tension. "I'll stand with her, whatever happens." Emma's chest tightened at his loyalty. For so long, she'd walked alone. Now she wasn't. Henry slid a new paper across the desk. "There's a gala next week. Clara's biggest of the year. Every investor, politician, and journalist who matters will be there. If we expose her then, in front of everyone, she won't have time to spin a cover story. It will destroy her in one stroke." Emma's heart raced. The thought of standing in that glittering hall, confronting Clara with the truth, terrified her. But the image of her twin's lost bracelet burned brighter. She had to do this, not just for herself, but for the sister stolen from her. "She humiliated me in public," Emma whispered. "Then she tried to kill me. Maybe it's poetic that her downfall happens the same way, where everyone can see." Henry nodded grimly. "But remember, Emma, once we move, there's no turning back. Clara will fight like a cornered animal." Emma met his gaze, fire sparking in her eyes. "Let her fight. This time I'll be ready." The storm outside rattled the windows, thunder rolling like a drumbeat. Inside, the decision was sealed. Clara Monroe had ruled with lies, manipulation, and cruelty. But her empire was cracking, and at the gala, under chandeliers and flashing cameras, Emma would be the one to deliver the first blow. The countdown to Clara's fall had begun. The Sterling mansion never looked more dazzling. Crystal chandeliers bathed the ballroom in golden light, violins swelled with grandeur, and the city's elite paraded in jewels and silk. Tonight was Clara Monroe's masterpiece, the annual gala that cemented her as queen of the upper echelon. Cameras flashed at her arrival, her diamond necklace sparkling like a crown. To the world, she was untouchable. But Emma knew better. Hidden beneath the velvet folds of her simple black dress was Henry's file. The documents, the payments, the photographs linking Clara to the abduction of Emma's twin. Her hands trembled as she clutched the folder, Michael's reassuring presence at her side. Henry lingered near the stage, waiting for the signal. Clara floated through the crowd, basking in admiration. She paused near Emma, her smile dripping venom. "Darling, try not to trip tonight. All eyes are on us." Emma met her gaze steadily. "Yes, Clara, they are." The evening unfolded with speeches, laughter, and endless glasses of champagne. Then came the moment Clara lived for. The toast. She ascended the stage in her glittering gown, raising her crystal flute. "To the future of the Sterling Empire," she proclaimed. "To power, loyalty, and legacy." The applause roared, but before she could continue, Henry stepped forward, his voice firm. "And what of the truth, Clara? Shall we toast to that as well?" The ballroom was still. Clara's smile faltered. "Henry," she said sweetly, "this isn't the time." Emma's voice cut through the silence. "It's exactly the time." Gasps rippled as she climbed the stage, clutching the folder. Clara's eyes widened, fury flashing beneath her polished mask. Emma faced the crowd, her voice shaking but strong. "For years, Clara Monroe has lied to you all. She isn't the woman of grace and charity she pretends to be. She financed a man named Victor Dane, a trafficker who stole children, including my twin sister." Whispers exploded like wildfire. Clara laughed coldly, desperation edging her tone. "Absurd. She's a waitress with fantasies." Henry raised the documents high. "These are signed ledgers, payments with Clara's signature, proof she bought silence, proof she committed a crime." The room erupted in chaos. Reporters surged forward, cameras flashing, investors shouting. Clara's mask cracked, her perfect composure collapsing. "Lies!" she screamed, her voice breaking. "This girl is nothing. She doesn't belong here." Emma stood tall, tears in her eyes but fire in her chest. "I belong more than you ever did. Because unlike you, Clara, I'm not afraid of the truth." Richard appeared then, his face ashen. For once, he didn't defend Clara. He simply looked at her with hollow eyes, as though finally seeing the monster she was. The crowd's applause for Clara turned into condemnation, the Queen's throne crumbling in a single night. And as Clara stumbled from the stage, her empire burning around her, Emma knew the battle was not just for revenge, it was for justice. The ballroom was chaotic. Reporters shouted questions, investors stormed towards the exits, and the glittering facade Clara Monroe had built cracked in real time. Her diamond necklace glinted under the chandeliers as she staggered off the stage, her face pale, her eyes wild. "Lies!" she shrieked again, but the crowd no longer listened. Phones flashed, cameras rolled, and whispers sharpened into condemnation. The Queen of High Society had been dethroned in a single night. Richard Sterling stood frozen, his empire shaken. For once, he didn't command the room. Instead, he looked small, burdened, watching the woman who had controlled him unravel. Clara lunged toward Emma, desperation dripping from every step. "You think you've won? You think they'll believe you over me?" Emma didn't flinch. Her voice was calm, steady, like steel. "They don't have to believe me, Clara. They believe the evidence. And deep down, you know it's over." Clara's breath hitched. For the first time, her mask truly shattered. Her smile collapsed into a snarl, and then nothing. Security swept in, guided by Henry's nod, and the folder of documents sealed her fate. The woman who once glittered brighter than chandeliers was dragged through the jeering crowd, her diamonds dimming with every step. The music had stopped. The gala was over, and so was Clara Monroe. Emma's knees trembled as she stepped down from the stage. Michael caught her arm, steadying her. Henry stood close, his face weary but relieved. For the first time in years, he looked lighter, as though a lifetime of guilt had finally lifted. Richard approached slowly, his eyes filled with sorrow. "Emma." His voice cracked, but he couldn't find the words. Emma shook her head. "You chose silence. Tonight, I chose the truth. That's the difference between us." He lowered his gaze, shame heavy on his shoulders. She knew he was her father, but the bond had been poisoned by years of cowardice. Forgiveness would take time, if it ever came. Later that night, Emma walked out of the Sterling mansion into the cool midnight air. The city lights shimmered in the distance, reflections dancing on the wet streets. She paused, closing her eyes, feeling the storm inside her chest begin to settle. Her sister was still out there, lost, hidden by Clara's crimes. But now Emma had power, allies, and the truth on her side. For the first time, the path forward wasn't clouded by shame or doubt. Michael stepped beside her, slipping his jacket over her shoulders. "So, what now?" Emma exhaled, a small, bittersweet smile tugging at her lips. "Now I keep searching. For her. For me. For life Clara tried to steal." She looked back one last time at the mansion, its golden lights dimmer than ever, and then turned towards the city. Her story was no longer one of survival. It was one of reclamation. The waitress had faced billionaires, betrayal, and near death. And though scars remained, she walked into the night stronger, freer, ready to rewrite her destiny. My friends, if you're still here at this moment, it means something in this story touched you deeply. Maybe it wasn't just about a waitress, a billionaire, or secrets hidden in the shadows. Maybe it reminded you of your own battles, the moments when life seemed unfair, when silence felt heavier than truth. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Emma's journey reminds us of that. She couldn't control the cruelty, the betrayals, or the lies, but she chose courage, she chose truth, and that choice set her free. And isn't that what life asks of us, too? Not perfection, not power, just the courage to face what hurts and still move forward. As Seneca said, difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body. Every scar, every trial is shaping you into someone stronger, someone freer. So if this story stirred something in you, don't let it fade. Like this video, share it with someone who needs hope tonight, and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Because together, we're not just watching, we're healing.